C2 Wrestling Podcast. We are back. Different locations, different cities, different states, different countries, different time zones. CTD and Snowden. Look, Snowden, I know you're going to ask me about a multitude of things. So before we talk about my excursions and what is going on, how you doing?
I'm not too bad. We are in different time zones. It's a little bit earlier in the day for me, a little bit later in the day for you. So I just had me a breakfast burrito. It's pretty good. You're about to have dinner, So
I did just have dinner. Yeah.
they just have dinner, I should say. So we're on a little bit of separate areas right now, but I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm tired.
Yep.
Tired for sure. Quick shout out to the European fans of wrestling. Because last night, I know this time zone is normal for these
Mm-hmm.
people, but waking up in the middle of the night and seeing Raw still had 2 hours to go, I was so incredibly thrown off. And I was like, I'm going back to bed. I can't watch this. So if any people in Europe watch live, first off, like you must work nights. Second off, go to bed.
Yeah. That's got to be like, I guess it's different. Don't get me wrong. There's a multitude of wrestling fans in all these other countries, like where you're at, but like it's maybe harder for somebody in a country like that to become a fan because it's just not built around our structure, or their structure, I should say. And we're East Coast United States too, so we have like the best time zone for everything. Realistically, thankfully, I couldn't imagine it being at 5 p.m. every day or whatever it is in all these other states. I have no idea. Let alone 2 a.m. whatever time it was airing at. Like that's crazy. I commend the wrestling fans in these other countries that stay up, watch these events, reruns, whatever you got to do to be a wrestling fan. But Monday Night Raw, 2 a.m. I guess the only thing they get overseas would be, now that we're getting into more overseas shows, they've had some, but still, like, Paris has had one show, you know?
Yeah.
I got to imagine, even when they're in Australia, that's a different time zone from them, too, right? Rarely ever do they get an 8 p.m. Event.
Yeah, so they have what Bash what pay-per-view do they have this year? I'm disclaimer, my brain is mush right now. So
Yeah,
your boy's gonna be saying nonsense.
what is going to Paris?
They've
I
got they,
forget.
they've got something. It's in August.
Yeah, I know 100%. I just off the
Is it
top of
like
my
the
head.
the Bash in Paris or Clash in
Clash
Paris?
in Paris. Clash in
Clash
Paris.
in
Yes, yes,
Paris.
yes.
I don't know why I kept thinking Bash in Berlin, but obviously that's
Yeah,
not it.
but Bash, Clash.
Yeah.
Come on.
Um
Those would be tag teams.
yeah,
Bash and Clash.
it would have been nice if I was here during that time. That would have worked out
Yeah.
great. Not that I would
Yeah.
have had time to go to the event, but as a soccer fan, it's weird getting the flip side. There's a soccer game on Sunday that I was looking at, and it starts at 8 p.m.
Incredible.
Back in the States, 5 p.m. or the early games, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So it is weird being on that side for soccer, but wrestling, I mean, I've said it like I am going to be on like highlight watch, and if I can catch a full segment, catch a full segment. I woke up this morning exhausted as can be, went on to the Netflix here, and it's got everything.
Hmm.
So I quickly loaded up Raw, watched like the first half hour, then had some stuff to do. But loading up Netflix and having just one destination for everything,
This is beautiful.
I didn't dive too deep into it, but I was like, man, this is nice.
PN. Just got to
Yeah.
get one of those guys.
And I have one on my laptop and I just
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah. It is so great at all just being in one place, honestly. I'm kind of, I don't know how long the USA SmackDown deal is and all that. I don't expect NXT to really pull off cable anytime soon, but it would be wonderful if it all went to Netflix at some point. I got to imagine the PLEs will all go to Netflix. At a point, you probably scrap Peacock, right? You would think, but I don't know the cost. I don't know the deals. Who knows? But I've done that too. I've gone onto Netflix and you just kind of see it all there, all the libraries, and it's great. It's much better that way.
If I remember correctly, the Peacock deal is actually separate.
I believe.
It is like a completely separate deal.
I
So,
mean,
and
that was
that,
well before Netflix even.
yeah, and that ends a few years before this USA deal ends. So, very well, I mean, hell, Hulu could come in or some shit, who
Yeah.
knows? But it
Yeah.
very
There could
well
be a
could be
whole
on.
new streaming service. There could be C2 streaming
They're already
and
on
they could be
tu
coming
they're
to
already on
us.
Tubi. Maybe Tubi.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just take over Tubi, and that's their platform. So, it was like a nice, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't deep dive into it, but it was a quick reminder of the
Network.
network where I was like, oh man, who look, I would assume the network would have worked when I'm here because it was in so many countries. There's just some streaming services that like, come on, like you can't give me like a travel pass. Like I tried to watch the Mets game when I was late in my
Yeah.
bed at 3 in the morning,
Hmm.
not available. I'm like, come on, I have MLB TV. Like, just
Yeah.
how do you expect the game to
Like,
grow?
oh, because I'm in Paris, I'm not paying you now? Is that
Yeah,
how it works? Like, I'm still fucking, give me a hold then. Give me a month-long hold on this bill or something, because I should be able to get some sort of travel pass or something. It's crazy. Even like cellular services have them. You can like go on to Verizon or whatever and get the cross country, whatever. I don't know, but Netflix, all that, any streaming service, that would be wonderful.
I mean, look, we've been pretty decent advocates for how great Raw on Netflix has been, like
Hmm.
from a entire standpoint, not just the show and wrestling itself, the 2.5 hours and the
Presentation.
convenience of it,
Yeah.
everything. This was the first eye opener to how great this deal is because being here, I got the hotel TV. I was just putting on whatever I could find that I knew I could turn off French subtitles. So
Hmm.
yesterday on the TV, I watched 3 episodes of Friends, which I don't even watch Friends. I watched 4 episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, which I don't even watch Malcolm in the Middle. And then at night, I had Django Unchained playing, which
Incredible
I've never
movie.
I've never seen it. I've seen like bits and pieces of it.
That's a shame.
And I ended up going to sleep. But there was NBA playoffs on, there was NHL playoffs on, there was baseball on. I couldn't access any of it. But Monday Night Raw, if I wanted to stay up and watch live or wake up in the morning and watch a little bit after, easily accessible through Netflix. It was the first like legit eye-opening of like, man, as wrestling fans, we love to bitch. We bitch about a lot. I mean, wrestling fans as a whole love to bitch. That Netflix deal is so fucking user friendly. I
Hmm.
get that we're missing out on like so many aspects that the network had and all this stuff that they still need to add. But from a convenience standpoint of watching the weekly show, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. It is so much better. The only downside is that Netflix cost just keeps going up, man. The more that gets added, the more they do, the more it goes up. And eventually, I don't think it's going to be just wrestling on there. Netflix is kind of like the original streaming service, and Prime can pick up this, Hulu picks up that. Who knows? It's not all going to go to one place, I'm sure, but Netflix is kind of like a hub for a lot. I feel like if that price goes up any higher, I mean, I gotta have it for wrestling now. I'm gonna be paying it no matter what. I hope Netflix isn't listening to this because that's gonna be their answer. They just raise their price because they got me hook, line, and sinker. I'm paying them. Wrestling on any service, I need it. I need it. It is so convenient though. I mean, I noticed this like early on. We thought about this even prior to it going to Netflix, just knowing that it was going to go there. But I remember being out, like, I don't know, I think I missed like one of those Raws and you did a solo review or something. But I remember like driving home or something and being like, oh, I could just pull it up on my phone.
Yeah.
So easy.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw semi related, but ESPN is changing their stuff right now. ESPN Plus is like
Hmm.
rebranding and raising its price. And then they're doing like a whole other package that's going to be like $30 a month that they're going to try to get people. It's a shame that it's a shame because there's a, like, if someone was like, oh, you got to ditch Hulu, you got to ditch Peacock, whatever, like, I would do it if wrestling wasn't on there. Like, for like normal television, I should just say sports, which is what I watch, and if I'm not watching wrestling, it's getting to the point where I'm like, damn, I need to just get on cable and, you know, avoid all of these
Yeah,
streaming
no, I mean
services. But
honestly,
now it's like you're just
it's hard.
stuck.
It's hard. I watch a lot of bullshit. I watch a lot of TV, a lot of movies, things like that. Django Unchained, great movie. But I've gone through, the streaming services. Like if there's something that's coming out, Peacemaker's coming out. All right, I'll get HBO Max for the month and I'll
Shout
watch
out
it.
HBO
Shout
Max.
out HBO Max. And then Peacemaker's over. All right, I'm gonna delete HBO Max for a little bit. Oh, and then now they dropped the Penguin
I
show
don't
or
advise
something.
doing that, by the way.
Yeah, let's do it again. Yeah, blah 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 blah. It's too expensive to have 20 of these streaming services. Is more than cable can be at a point, and especially with the upgraded cost. I do believe Netflix is going to become like the WWE hub at a point. And I mean, the more they keep adding, you got to think Netflix did raise the price right at the addition of WWE for a reason, too. I mean, you're adding that's a hell of a library to start adding. There's a shit ton of wrestling fans out there that are going to use Netflix now. So, rightfully so. Once they get SmackDown and the PLEs, and now they got all these other content too, who knows, man? It can get outrageous, to be honest. But for the time being, the price is worth the convenience for sure.
Yeah, they're looking at Microsoft and like, ooh, I like your style. I like your
Yeah,
style.
yeah,
Let's raise
yeah,
some
yeah.
prices. No, as we mentioned at the beginning of the pod, I am in France. I am currently in Rene Dupree's guest room. Um, yeah,
Fifi.
it's funny because, obviously they speak French here, and every time someone French talks to me, I'm thinking of one of two things. I'm either thinking of Sami Zayn speaking French. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why, like him like cutting a promo half in French, half in English first comes to mind. Then the next thing is I just start have the AJ Styles. He is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just starts playing
Yep.
in
That's
French.
what I think of, like the AJ Styles, the camera shake. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
like a crazy moment. You really are like a month or so off of being there during a WWE event. That would have been crazy to go to in a totally different country. But maybe again, maybe one day, maybe next time you'll be in Germany and there'll be a show or something. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, there's WWE is so global. Um, there's definitely shows that if it worked out, I'd absolutely go because
Mm-hmm.
the foreign shows, I mean, don't get me wrong, the cards are normally solid, not always like the craziest thing, but the crowds, it's all about the environment.
Yeah.
Except Saudi. I will not go to any Saudi shows
Not
that
a
I
chance.
will not be a part of as I have rolled over
You
my
didn't even need to
wire.
bring that up. I think we all knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I will not be attending any Saudi. Interesting, speaking of Saudi, I saw Punk on
Promo.
the promo,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because he obviously, I mean, you can make an argument he's an early favorite for the Rumble.
Yeah. Yeah. I
If you're gonna
mean,
win the Rumble, you got to be there, pal.
and also here's the thing with Saudi. Listen, I ain't going to Saudi. I'm also not getting paid to go to Saudi. How many names in the beginning were like, nope, not going? And then they ultimately ended up going. And also, those early years in Saudi were a bit, what is going on here? They got stuck
Yeah.
there, held there, whatever it was. Now they've been there 50 times, whatever. It's a bit more established. The worst part is the flight, I'm sure. Honestly, at this point, they get in, they get out of Saudi. They don't spend a 3-week tour there like they do Europe or whatever. I'm sure a lot of the people that at points said they weren't going to go, they'll end up going.
Yeah, and it is also different with them being under the TKO umbrella
Mm-hmm.
because the UFC goes there. They've
Correct.
held boxing events there. They've got this relationship with I forget his name, but you see him at all the events that he funds. So it is definitely different now compared to um, you know, those early days, like with Vince arguing with like the fucking head of Saudi and getting them stuck on the fucking airplane, which just top five places I don't want to be stuck in is inside an airplane. Like fucking just
Ain't
yeah,
gonna fucking
I'd
tell
rather
me.
I'd
Yeah.
rather have to fucking sleep on the airport floor than just be sat in that
Out
airplane seat the entire time.
that Saudi flight's, what, double digit hours, I'm sure. I don't even know how long, but
Probably
that
like a
is,
day.
yeah, literally almost a day, probably. That is my personal hell. That is my personal hell, is sitting in a plane for that long. So it'd have to be writing me a big old check to be going there. But I don't know. Again, I think the things are just different. So many names that didn't go or wouldn't go have ended up going, and it's fine. They make it out of there all right now. I don't want the Saudi shows. It's nothing against like even the fans. It's just like it's all the Saudi shows have just been so exhibition. There hasn't been like one. I mean, there's been some good matches at some of them, sure, but there hasn't been really anything of crazy value to come out of any Saudi show. And I feel like look back at a Rumble in Saudi is always going to be, it could be the greatest Rumble match of all time. Sami Zayn wins the Rumble, CM Punk wins the Rumble. Who knows? But it's always going to kind of look back and like have an asterisk next to it. I feel like.
Yeah, it's gonna the easiest comparison is you're gonna look back at it like the COVID Rumble, like the
Mm-hmm.
COVID shows. Like they happened, they're a part of history, but odds are they end up being like, oh, who did win that one? Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's right, that did happen. Like,
yeah,
no knock on it, but I mean, the time change for the US crowd is absolutely going to be a thing. With that, a Rumble on at 1 in the afternoon does not feel like the Royal Rumble. It feels
no, that
like
actually
I'm
pains
watching,
me.
yeah, it feels like I'm watching like the 9 hour pre-show that they have for all these big
Yeah,
events.
that actually really like hurts me to think about as a 1 p.m. Rumble. Now, they've broke down some barriers in Saudi, so I understand a lot of what they're trying to do with them. A 30-woman Rumble in Saudi is kind of nuts. It's kind of crazy when you really think about it. They've gotten better with the women too. At first, it was like kind of a joke to me, having the women. I get like the barrier trying to break down, but when the women are like scrutinized. They got to wear t-shirts on top of nightgowns, on top of onesies and all this crazy shit. It's a lot. It's hard to like watch at times, to be honest. They've gotten better with things like that. That's kind of like history, 30 women in the ring at once in a way in Saudi Arabia is kind of nuts.
I mean,
Still has an asterisk next to it
yeah,
though,
there was a time. I mean, they all do. Like that. It's not even
yeah, yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
Every icon I've ever watched.
Yeah,
But I mean, there was a time I remember it was like the first women's match will be on, or like Renee Paquette,
mm,
like her being on commentary was like so groundbreaking.
yeah,
And now it's like, we complain about Saudi shows, like they don't really hit the same. But like you said, like they are trying to make a difference or whatnot, and like
yeah,
that is very historic.
yeah.
Like I'm
I actually don't think
don't
it gets kind of like the talk that you would expect it to get.
Yeah. Yeah, and like don't quote me on this because I'm sure I'm misremembering this. But I feel like at the time when they first started going over there, it was either like right before or just around the time they just started letting women drive.
Yeah,
Like it
something like
was
that.
like
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
something like that where it's like a 30 woman rumble is crazy. Like
crazy.
that is, I mean, and then on top of it, like Liv Morgan versus Becky Lynch, there was getting like this is awesome chants from the crowd. Like it is,
Yeah,
you see the development. So like I get it, but I'd much rather be in Paris or like Puerto Rico or something amongst those environments
anywhere. Yeah,
for for one of those shows. Um yeah, definitely weird being in Paris. The time changes has messed me up. I've just been like I'm absolutely wired or I am like eyes about to close dead tired
yeah,
and there has not been much of an in between. I mentioned it gave me a good appreciation of um, European fans. This also has given me a great appreciation for those European trips for the wrestlers.
oh
This
yeah.
is, I used to travel a
You're
lot
doing it.
more. Yeah,
You're doing it.
I used to travel a lot more.
Yeah,
A lot more. And I was used to it. And, I wasn't doing any physical activity, but I was used to the travel part of it. And it was exhausting, don't get me wrong, but I got into a pretty good schedule. This just like all that pales in comparison to this. I've been here 2 days. I'm still exhausted. I'm still not acclimated, even though I've been to Europe before and like right away I was good to go. I couldn't imagine if yesterday they were like, yeah, now go wrestle 20 minutes. No.
Yeah, you got to go put on a TLC match at a house show now.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
You know,
facing
it's
Solo Sikoa. Have fun.
yeah, yeah. All right, you're gonna go out there and you're gonna take 15 Gunther chops in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Paris is it's crazy. It's crazy that you're there right now. The European shows in general, though, like it is so much travel, and the wrestlers it's such a physical job. They are probably a bit more accustomed to the travel, so it's probably easier in that sense. And a lot of the Europe shows, not all of them, but there's a good chunk now where like they're actually going home when they go to Europe, so maybe that makes it
Yeah.
easier for like half of the chunk of people there. I mean, Europe's big, they're not always in Ireland, they might be in the UK and maybe they don't touch around certain places, but still, you're closer to home, things like that. The amount of travel, we being wrestling fans, I've always said, in my opinion, the hardest schedule in sports is baseball. That baseball schedule is brutal. 162 games is like no joke, in my opinion. On top of all the spring training, everything, like a baseball schedule is so much, in my opinion. Nothing compares to, especially the old school WWE travel schedule. 300 days a year, never home, wrestling every night. You got to hit the gym. You're eating like shit on the road, probably. All these flights, long car rides. Like, I don't know if people, wrestling fans do. We think about it, we talk about it, we consider it, but I don't know if people really understand, like, what that life is kind of like.
And look, the travel earlier on was really crazy. The 90s, they had some crazy schedules. Best way to look at it was those early days of NXT where people would get called up and they were ripped from
Mm-hmm.
being in NXT because they're not traveling, they're at the
Performance Center.
performance center every day, they're jacked. Then they're on the main roster for a few months and like they look different. They
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
have the workout every day. They don't have the luxury of the performance center, and they're traveling like crazy. And it's like all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden, don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying any of them like look bad with the weight.
Better than me.
It's a noticeable difference in
Yeah.
their body, like for a fact. Like Sami Zayn, for instance, someone
Yes.
who I would prefer not be jacked. That would be weird to
Mm-hmm.
look at. I like Sami Zayn the exact way he is. But if you remember, there was a point in NXT where Sami Zayn kind of
Ripped.
had some abs going.
Yeah.
He was
He was shredded.
very toned, and then
Part
gets on the main
part of it is
roster, and now he looks great.
yeah, these people age a bit too. We're talking 10 years ago with Sami Zayn now, so it is a little bit of ways away. But it is such a difference just kind of being stationary with that performance center, which all the tools are just at your disposal comparative to the travel. I think back to this sometimes. I think it's like some old, not even on the network, like it used to be on Netflix before the network when they used to kind of have like the random WWE docs. There was a Big Show doc. And I remember him talking about, and Big Show's always been well big, it's in his name. But I remember him talking about like just life on the road of like fast food, all that shit, everything. And it wasn't until he got his own bus where it was like then he could have fresh fruit around and things like that and could eat a little bit better while traveling. It leads me to bring up also too, like the stature of some of these people. Like Zelina Vega has it easy comparative to Omos,
Yeah.
like not that against Zelina, I'm sure the schedule is still just as crazy, but like could you imagine that travel life, flying to Japan and all this crazy shit as a 7'2" guy? Like that's just nuts.
I was just talking to about this exact thing with my coworkers because one coworker is 6 foot something, big guy, big teddy bear, but he's a
Yeah.
big dude, and he's talking about his flight over, and his wife came with him, and he said it was like him, his wife, and then another coworker. And I mentioned that no one was in the seat next to me. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was fantastic. So I put all my stuff there. Then I had all of this room because I'm not that tall.
Yeah.
I'm only 5'8". My legs are spread out. I got the recline going. I'm sitting playing games. Like I'm chilling. For him, he's still crammed. He was like, yeah, the the screen is this close to my face.
Yeah,
I'm
you can
like,
just lean forward for a little
literally,
headrest.
I'm like all cozy. I got the complimentary blanket that they give me. I'm like, I got the
You
pillow
can
on my
get a
lumbar.
full stretch going.
Yeah, literally. Like just gotta do like a little bit of a turn, but I'm like, I can fully get my
Yeah,
legs reached out. Like, and he's struggling. Like, I couldn't imagine being Braun Strowman on a flight to fucking
brutal.
Southwest or some shit going to
I
a
mean, at a point of
country
that
18 hours
size,
away.
at a point where you're that type of size, like you got to be traveling at a higher class, to like
I'd hope so.
hopefully get more space. I mean, it's more expensive, things like that. The old schedule though, wrestling was going through bad eras. We were just talking about Saudi Arabia and all that. The shows were like exhibitions. The greatest Royal Rumble, that era of wrestling is like one of the dark eras of wrestling. Like there's that post 33 to really COVID era, and then all the way through COVID is pretty much a stinker. COVID, I can't really put it on fault at anything. Like, yeah, Vince was losing his mind, things like that too, but COVID was going to hurt the business no matter what state it was in. The maybe the only good thing that came out of COVID within the wrestling world is that they changed some things. And that schedule for these wrestlers is a whole lot different now. I don't know why it was never this. It makes it so much more, now they're not doing live shows 200 days a year. Maybe they're 100 days a year. So now when they're at Prudential Center, it's a bit more must go because they don't do it as much. You don't see them as often. It's just an easier life for not only the talent, everybody traveling, the crews, the camera crews, the referees, the commentators, everything, production. There's so much involved. It's kind of crazy. The schedule's a lot on everybody. That's like really one of the best things that has happened to wrestling in a long time is that smaller, tighter schedule.
Living where I live, there's rumors that Evolution will be there, and rumors that SNME would still record at the same time. But because I only get WWE in my city like once a year, I'm like, look,
WWE is now in your city.
yeah, I thought of that too while you
Yeah.
were saying that. Um, I'm more inclined to go. It's not, the
Yeah.
top of the list, but I'd rather go to that than not see anything at all. So
Yeah.
it is it is quite interesting, the shorter schedule, but it feels like with them being on the shorter schedule that when they do those Euro trips, they feel so much longer
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're posting all of like the house show stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
they obviously don't post that stuff when they're in the States. So it's like you see like 4 posts of them in London. You're like, man, they're still in London. So it's just
Yeah.
been 2 days.
Yeah. I mean, just speaking of international shows in general, we are inching closer and closer to bigger international events. We had what was Money in the Bank in Toronto last year, right?
Yes.
Uh, you know, uh, Bigger than Money in the Bank is SummerSlam. I wouldn't be surprised to see SummerSlam hit Toronto. I think we're gonna get that London WrestleMania eventually. That is
We had the
massive.
Chamber in Toronto this year as well in the
Yeah, the
bigger
Chamber,
arena.
yeah. They keep floating back to Perth for a bunch of events now. Elimination Chamber, Crown Jewel. I feel like Australia's gotten a little stiff. I kind of feel bad for Australia. They're getting the most like outside of the Saudi shows, the most exhibition shows. That Chamber, we knew exactly what was going to happen, and now they're getting Crown Jewel, which is like Crown Jewel Championship. I don't know. Still, good show, I'm sure, but I would want like more worth out of the event that comes to my area. So I kind of feel for the areas that get those types of events. But WrestleMania traveling overseas, I'm honestly surprised in 40 years it hasn't happened. I think it does by 45. I would be surprised if it doesn't by 45 hit London.
Yeah, I'd be quite shocked if it's not sooner rather than later. I am very intrigued how they do with the numbers and like if they want to go through the headache and the hurdles of it all. But look, there's only one WrestleMania. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say this as if like WrestleMania isn't completely different. But if you're willing to do the Rumble in Saudi, like the Rumble really is the number two. Like I know they call
Always will
SummerSlam the
be.
biggest party of the summer, but the Rumble is the number two.
Always
The
is.
fact that you're willing to do that in Saudi, like You are not that far off of doing Mania in London,
Yep.
in France, anywhere. Like you
Yeah.
aren't that far away from taking that like last big step. It's a jump, but you're not that far away. So with the Rumble this year, it really, I mean, if you're London who's been begging for a Mania, it gives you hope. Like, all right, this is gonna happen. I'm gonna keep manifesting this.
Yeah. Again, I really would be surprised. I mean, you look at Mania 42 in New Orleans. You know, there's rumors, and I wouldn't be surprised if they wrap back to Philly in the next couple of years. You know, it did so well in Philly. It would be maybe even more surprising if they don't wrap back to Philly than not going to London. They just did Vegas. I don't think Vegas gets another one for a little bit. I think they'll hold off on
Indies
that
do
for a
one.
while. Yeah, Indies do one. London, like that's the next place that comes to mind for me. You know, I know there was so much talk about Minnesota for a while, but I don't think that's ever going to come to fruition, to be honest. Florida's always do. You know,
Well,
Florida's going to get
Minnesota,
in it.
they threw them the two
Oh
night
yeah,
SummerSlam.
that's right. Yeah, yep, that's right. Yeah, still got something. Um, Florida's always going to be like on the ballot. You know, I'm sure somebody's always pitching somewhere in Florida for a Mania. But I don't know. There's not many places in the U.S. right now that are like I'm clamoring to have a Mania. I think the London Mania would be honestly pretty special.
I'm I have to speak up for Atlanta. I mean, their last Mania being
Yeah, it
27,
was a
which was
while ago.
dog shit.
Yeah, that's
Like
hardly.
a
It's not really a
literal dog
WrestleMania.
shit
Yeah, yeah,
fucking
yeah,
Mania.
yeah.
And on top of it too, like they've been shafted by a lot of shows recently.
They
I know
have.
Bad Blood was obviously big, but Day One took a big hit when that was here.
Mm-hmm.
They really haven't had as many shows. Like, it's still WWE's still hot when it comes here. Don't get me wrong, or there, I should say. But it like the fact that that stadium on top of it too, like it's a
Mm-hmm.
great stadium.
Yeah,
That stadium hasn't gotten another Mania. They're definitely well
they're
overdue.
due. I'm surprised too because Atlanta, you know, there's a certain culture in Atlanta that is like mainstream, you know, and wrestling's really kind of hitting like a mainstream culture with a lot of like these rappers and things right now. Like they could do a lot with Atlanta in any event, you know. SummerSlam has been all over, don't get me wrong, but it was in LA for a minute. You know, SummerSlam always kind of gets like the coasts, I feel like, you know. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. They've been to Tennessee and things like that, wherever they were, Nashville the one year. But Mania, the Rumble in Atlanta would actually be great. I think they would maybe probably do a Rumble there before they go back for a WrestleMania. But my biggest fear, I don't even want to say this, God forbid I speak it into existence. They better not run back the Rumble in Saudi. They better not, man. There's no way.
You
There's
never
no
know,
way.
honestly. Yeah.
They get so much money from Saudi that they'll do whatever they want there. Bigger fear is that they get a WrestleMania.
I I'm sure the people watching are like, God, like Chris has not stopped moving. Like he's I'm fighting for my life right now that I'm going to do a C2 first. I'm going to actually stand up for a little bit
And podcast.
and podcast because literally as I was talking, I was like, "Oh my God, I could fall asleep. Like
Yeah.
I like felt my
Pass out.
words slowing. I'm like, "Good
That's
Lord.
funny.
I got to stand up to step away from the jokey jokes for a second to go serious. Uh, the news, obviously, the other day, Sabu passing away. Um, obviously, a shame. Absolute legend. We always try to think of positives and good times and good moments. I know you'll agree with me. As a kid, seeing that DDT to Rey Mysterio, man, like that was. We didn't grow up on Sabu like most people. I mean, you think of the prime of ECW, we are so young.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a lot of our viewing of Sabu was originally through WWE.
Mm-hmm.
And, it wasn't like the peak prime ECW Sabu, barbed wire death matches and stuff like that. That DDT,
Insane.
it's one of my favorite moments ever where as a kid I was like, was that supposed to happen? Was that where the match was supposed to end? Yeah, like just the confusion and like you've mentioned it before on this podcast. I got a little older. No, yeah, there's no doubt Rey Mysterio isn't losing the fucking world title to Sabu.
Sabu.
When I was a kid, that happened. I was like, shit,
Sabu's gonna win
Sabu's
the world title.
Sabu might win the world title.
It's crazy. Sabu is one of those wrestlers that you're right. 98, 99, 2001. We're young. We're 3, 4, 5 years old. And I do remember as like a little kid, like seeing clips of Sabu, things like that. But then it's not really till that WWE ECW run to where like maybe we start to see more of him, things like that. Sabu was one of those just always larger than life wrestlers. Like just the things he has done, his look, his style, his in ring, man, just the chair in the ring, jumping off the chair to the ropes to diving outside, just all this crazy stuff that he would do. Like he's kind of like the epitome of ECW. Like he is Mount Rushmore ECW for certain. And he's done so much crazy shit even outside of ECW WWE. I mean, his final match was only 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
you know, and it's always sad. You don't want to see anybody pass away, any of these wrestlers go on. Sabu, man, we've seen him live, we've seen him in person at a independent show, PWS. Sabu, you got to hit one for our guy. It's a
Well,
shame.
were you at the ECW show when we were
However
younger?
long ago, yeah, kids, yeah,
At
yeah.
the
So
at
that
the
is like
Rotako?
I the only like memory I think I have of that, honestly, is going up to like the stand and they had figures. And I think I met Tommy Dreamer there. I think somewhere there's a photo of me and Tommy Dreamer. And I'm like a real little kid.
So I remember the main event of that show is Sabu versus the Big Show.
Mm-hmm,
I believe RVD was the champion at the time, but he wasn't on the card. And I remember like Big Show like cutting promos during the match. Like
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
I vividly remember his like he was getting booed or whatever, and he's like, "Don't care, still rich," quite funny. But the lead up to the match was Big Show's attacking someone or whatever happens, and the lights go out and they turn back on, and Sabu is standing on a chair pointing to
Hitting
the
the pose.
sky, and it's like, I hate this word, but man, the
Aura.
aura on that fucking guy, like when the lights shut out and turned on and you saw him, it was to compare to another ECW like New Jack. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
shit's about to go down. Like
You know,
shit is
there's
about to go down.
there's a couple of those guys that this is what ECW did really well in was like capturing the aura of a certain people. Another just insane ECW name, the Sandman, probably one of the worst in ring wrestlers of all time. But that entrance, man, his ability to just kind of connect with the crowd, I guess, just from being a madman, just the beer drink and smashing his head, busting himself open, the kendo stick. Like ECW created a lot of larger than life personalities. Sabu is an absolute icon in the world of wrestling and should be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. Sabu's like a Hall of Fame. Put him in. I don't even want to say first ballot. Just put him in already. I'm surprised he's kind of not to this point. I know his WWE stint isn't really much, but the ECW, the WWE stint together, I think it's great. As a kid, I wanted him to win that World Heavyweight Championship so bad, man. We loved Ray, don't get me wrong, but it's a shame he's gone. It's just terrible, man. You don't want to see anybody go.
I got to give a shout to in one of our upcoming pods, we talked about wrestling action figures. And I remember two different Sabu action figures that I had.
Mm-hmm.
One was an ECW Sabu action figure that I can't remember if I had the green pants or the silver pants version, but there was two versions, and it no joke may have been like that big. It was so fucking small. It was like rock hard plastic. But then I remember getting a TNA Sabu
Oh,
action figure, and the pants were rubber.
that's insane. Them being rubber.
Yeah.
I remember having the like WWE rendition Sabu figure, just the gold pants, standard Sabu look. Man, That was one of the figures that I used to use a lot too. I feel like Sabu was always in the mix doing some
I
wild
think that
shit
was a
for me.
Legends figure, if I remember, or Classics,
Yeah,
whatever
it
the
might
hell
have been
they
like a
called them.
classic superstars. Yeah, Sabu figure. Yeah, you know, man, it's crazy. I they did, show the in memory of Sabu on Monday Night Raw. I thought we were gonna get some sort of package. I would have liked some sort of Sabu package. I think that was rightfully so. But it's just crazy, man. It's a shame. I'm glad we got to see him in person. And that's a long time ago now. That's like 9, 10 years ago. But just an icon in wrestling again. That's all I got to say. An icon.
Yeah. So rest in peace, Sabu. We got some time left on this pod. I am sure it's in the thumbnail or in the title description, whatever. My brain is fucking shot. Uh, Wrestlers that just do more than wrestling. The Miz, like
Goat.
outside of actual Hollywood movies, The Miz might be like he is that guy, man. You just see
Mhm.
him fucking everywhere. I know he's a great ambassador and he's like talked about just always saying yes. Nothing, nothing was too little or too big. He'd say yes to everything. This is like the what ninth rendition of American Gladiators. Like I feel like this fucking show never
Well,
never
see,
just
there's
fully dies. It, keeps coming back to America. But shout out Miz being the host.
I think Miz is a great choice to be host of American Gladiators. I mean, also, who better to kind of host a show like that than like a professional wrestler or somebody of that stature? And they've run back American Gladiators a time or two, but there's been so many like similar spinoffs too. The Rock had that Titan Games show. There's been so many similar versions of it. They did put out an American Gladiators doc like a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe. It's a really good doc actually on the show. And the Miz being the host, like he's done a lot. He got his start in the real world, the real world road rules as well. It's like a tongue twister. Alongside some crazy names like Theo Vaughn, like just nuts. Like there's like crazy names to come out of some of these reality shows. But Miz going on to host, he's done hosting for even that type of stuff, like The Challenge and shows like that. He's done hosting for other shows, Dancing with the Stars, now American Gladiators.
Fear
He's
Factor.
Fear Factor. He's done movies. They're not Hollywood blockbusters, but he's done
Yeah.
some movies. There's the obvious John Cena's, Rocks, Batistas, things like that have gone on to really have like Hollywood fame. But there's a lot of crossovers from like TV or reality to wrestling and vice versa. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna call Logan Paul like a pioneer or anything, but I think he is kind of a good example of where it's at now, where I'm sure there's plenty of people in the back who have issues and take liberties with someone like that, with the fan base starting wrestling compared to building a fan base through wrestling. But you look throughout wrestling, and the ones who have come from some random reality TV shows, when they stay, like you're like, all right, it kind of, it makes sense as to why this person became a wrestler.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like all these people become WWE champions, but like you can see the personality or the in ring, whatever. Like a good example, this is straight out of fucking left field, but because I'm a TNA guy, Jesse Goddard's.
Yeah. Yep.
Like you saw with his, was he the best in ring guy ever? No, but you saw with his personality, with his character, with his charisma, Captain Charisma, it all made sense. You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I get why this guy who comes from an outside wants to be inside and why someone would be accepting of that and getting this guy on TV.
Yeah. It's WWE is starting, and we've been saying this for a while now, for years, just maybe not on YouTube for everyone to hear, but they should branch out their wrestlers more. They're stars. They should be advocating to go do these things, to host shows, be in movies, be out and about, become more of a public entity, really. It only is going to help bring in people to wrestling. Now, American Gladiators, Mrs. the host, I don't know if people are going to watch and go, okay, I got to go look up the Mrs. best matches now. I get it. But I don't know. You throw Liv Morgan as the star in a movie, and people might adhere to her and want to check out more Liv Morgan stuff. there's been so many crossovers in wrestling, some crazy ones. Grayson Waller comes from Survivor, and he's pretty prominent right now in the world of wrestling. That's maybe one of the bigger crossovers comparative to the Miz. Um, a lot of people have gone back to reality. This is a weird one too, because I think if I remember correctly, the Miz hosted it actually, and CM Punk was on it. They did some challenge spin-off show that the Miz returned to a bunch because he came from that. And there was a season where CM Punk was on it. Like that's pre his AEW return and everything. Like that's so crazy to me. The Miz hosting and CM Punk's on this show. Like, how did these lines connect for that to happen?
Also, how not how much did he get paid, but how did they like Punk must have just been genuinely interested, and it was
Mm,
like one of those like I want to do it to check it off and say that I did it. Because
yeah,
there's 0% chance at that time Punk was like, man, I'm kind of hurting for a check.
yeah.
Let me find a reality
Well,
show.
I do know it was right off the back of his Mickey Gall fight too. It was right after that, so I know he collected that Mickey
Yeah,
Gall
he made
money.
like
So
300K or something for
yeah,
that fight,
yeah,
whatever they just,
whatever his
disclosed. Like,
purse was. Yeah,
and I'm
like
sure he got
he was
pay-per-view
doing all
too.
right. I think he was hitting a point of like, I'll try whatever, fuck it,
Yeah.
So he was willing to do something. There's been some random crossovers. Again, a couple people have played Survivor, things like that. There's been people on Big Brother that are wrestlers. I believe Luchasaurus was on Big Brother, correct as
Yeah.
well. Like, yeah, some just weird like names to cross over to reality TV. There's been reality TV names to cross over to wrestling just for like simple stints. I mean, we got the Jersey Shore over like all sorts of wrestling. Fucking Snooki had a WrestleMania match. That's insane to say. That's
TNA
insane.
had like all the
All the
all
other
the
ones,
Jersey
yeah.
Shore members that aren't
Snooki.
Snooki, Paulie D, and Mike the Situation, like the three biggest ones that you'd want to get.
Yeah,
They got
yeah.
like all the others in classic fashion. It is funny though, like you mentioned, you watch a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
You very well could be watching, this latest season of Survivor. What you could be watching the most random thing. And 10 years from now, you're like, oh shit, this person's in
That's so and
WWE.
so.
Like
Yep.
that's so and so from the challenge, whatever. Like it feels that we are at a point now where it is much more, I don't want to say accepted because it's not the word because I'm not in the locker room to tell you if they're like as
Mm-hmm.
accepted or not. But it isn't as foreign to the fan base
No.
for someone like that to come in and make a name for them, which is good and bad. As fans, you just want good wrestling. You should just want good
Yeah.
wrestling from good people. So if they're someone good, who cares? On the flip side, where it's like wrestlers getting the opportunity to do things, it is crazy. I don't want to always like go back to the, oh, well, under Vince, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't always want to do that.
It's so
But
hard not to
it's so hard
though.
not to because I'll immediately think of like Damian Priest, who, look, I'm not saying Priest would have did his role in Black, was it Black Panther?
I believe so.
Yeah, I'm not saying he would have did that role and then
Gone on to
they're
be the biggest thing
they're
ever.
they're casting him for fucking the lead of the next Scorsese film or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have hurt,
It would
wouldn't
have
have been
only
bad
helped
for him.
WWE. And
Yeah.
but it's like I understand a world where like okay, like say Priest went to go film that movie, maybe he doesn't win Money in the Bank, and then he
Yeah.
doesn't get that cash. And like I understand there's like things like that, but Liv Morgan getting this movie where she's gonna be off TV for a month, like it's not that big of a deal. She's gonna be off TV for a month. Like she can survive her, revive her WWE career when she comes back. There should be more crossovers. I'm sure there's been way more than just like Priest getting denied, and that's just one of the only few stories we know about. There's been rumors of even like Becky and Seth have done a lot of like Marvel stuff, things like that. I mean, Seth did; he just wasn't in like the final cut of the new Captain America movie, whatnot. But they're starting to branch out a bit. I do like to see that. I like to see all these people kind of get little roles. Drew McIntyre had a recent role in a Batista movie, and Drew McIntyre's got a good look for like
Yeah.
for I don't know a bad guy. I don't know anything. He's got a good look for it. You would think they even back then you would think they would be really pushing for it, but back then they used to also have like WWE studios and they would make their own movies. And we did get a lot of crossovers. I mean, you look at the longest yard's got a handful of wrestlers in that movie alone, you know? I used to always think it was wild as a kid watching like a random movie and you'd see a wrestler pop up. I always thought that was fun.
What's hilarious, literally today at work, a coworker mentioned, yeah, I didn't know in the first Spider-Man that Bonesaw is supposed
It's
to be
Macho
like,
Man.
no, he goes, it's supposed to be, it's like an ode to Randy Savage. I didn't know that was like a thing for him. And we're like, you know that is him, right? And he was like, he's not a wrestling fan at all. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, I had no idea. He's like, I just realized like, oh, this is, someone told me it's like they're paying homage to
Yeah.
Randy Savage, whatever. He didn't know that that was actually Randy Savage. Like
Yeah.
for us, obviously we know that right away. It's hilarious seeing the most random, you know, cameos, not like to the level of like Austin Theory where you
In the
barely see his
background of Spider
face
Man.
as
Yeah. Yeah.
as a guard, but maybe gets a line or two, just has a quick cameo. You're like, oh shit, that's MVP or something.
Yeah. Whoever. Yeah. Yeah. It is. I always thought it was fun as a kid watching like even some of like the WWE studio movies are shitty movies, but they were fun to watch because there's wrestlers in them. But it was always fun seeing the wrestlers pop up. I mean, they've put out some good movies though too, man. The Marine was always good. 12 Rounds was a solid one. The Condemned with Stone Cold is a classic. It is crazy though
See
too
no
how
evil.
See No Evil. The Rock made it big, Cena made it big, Batista made it big. Somebody will be next. There'll be another wrestler to transition and be big. It very well is Roman, to be honest. I really can see it being Roman. But it's also funny because, like, dude, Stone Cold did a lot of movies. Stone
Yeah.
Cold's in a lot of shit. And, like, I don't know, just never took off for him in that sense, I guess. Or maybe he didn't love it like that. You gotta love it, though, too. The schedule that could arguably be the next worst thing to that WWE schedule is the schedule of like a main Hollywood actor. Those are brutal long days for a long time.
I remember Roman Reigns talking about like, I don't want to say easier. I don't know if easier is the word, but he mentioned being on set and filming and doing like the same lines over and over and over again, and mentioning how like other actors can't believe that wrestlers go out and it's one take live audience like
Mm-hmm.
you mess up like it's everywhere. They're posting about it. It's this whole big
Yeah.
thing, and it truly prepares them for, I am sure there's like a anxiousness slash awkwardness of filming a scene and a bunch of people are just standing around doing whatnot and you're acting your ass off trying to be in the moment as that character. Wrestlers, like, obviously Cena is growing, Batista is growing, The Rock is obviously massive. I think we're reaching that point where a lot more people in Hollywood are like, let's give these people give them a shot because they already have a very established fan base. I am sure they cost less than a normal mainstream actor or actress. I'm sure there's a big piece of it where it's like, hey, if we can just at the very least cover what they would make in these few
Mm-hmm.
weeks, it makes sense for everybody. I think we're not too far away from like, there's always like the next big person in Hollywood. I think we're pretty soon going to get a wrestler that creeps in there and there's the big four. Maybe it's Roman. Maybe it's Cody. Cody mentioned not too long
Mm-hmm.
ago that it actually does interest him. He did
Yeah, it
take a
could be
fucking,
Drew.
yeah, he did take acting classes, but Drew, you could tell me, I could wake up tomorrow and you were like, hey, you were asleep for 3 years. Drew McIntyre's the new like Jason Statham.
Highest
I'd
paid
be like,
actor in the
yeah,
world.
I'd
Yeah.
be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I believe it.
Yeah.
He's got the
I get
look,
it. Yeah.
he's got the
Saw
size,
it
he's got it
coming.
all. Yeah, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. They've I think Charlotte's done some things too. I think they have the opportunity with some of the women as well to really get the women in big roles. So I'm interested to see what's coming. I mean, they just announced, I mean, he's recently let go, but Braun Strowman's got a whole show that's going to be on USA. Like, that's kind of crazy. They're starting to, not even WWE, kind of dip their toes in other things. It really seems like other things are starting to dip their toes in WWE, and pull from their crop.
Yeah, and you have to give credit where it's due to not just The Rock, John Cena. and Batista. Even before them, when Hulk Hogan was doing movies, even though he lies about certain movies and whatnot.
He kind of broke Thor
Andre
down for like
Andre the Giant,
Princess Bride.
like these are roles that they
Rowdy
filled.
Roddy Piper.
Yeah, exactly. They filled so well that, those are like the early days, but now, I mean, like, you can really envision so many of the wrestlers. And granted, some of them, I'm gonna say a name. This is not what I'm not referring to him as one,
Mhm.
but some of them may be using WWE as like the beginning platform. And like that's not far-fetched. Not saying this person, just using him because I could see this person being a famous Hollywood actor. But I think of like Trick Williams, who like wasn't an independent wrestler,
Mhm.
obviously was a football player, gets trained in the performance center, looks like $1 million, acts like a
Yeah.
million bucks, speaks like a
Yeah.
million bucks. Like he is the total package in all aspects. If you told me Trick's gonna go to the main roster, then he's gonna start to get some little roles. Like he's like the type of guy
He
where
just
I
had a
could
TV
see
show
him.
role.
Yeah, I could see him. Yes, All American or whatever it
Something
was.
like that. Yeah, yeah.
I could see someone like him, like kind of having their acting career take off before their
Mhm.
wrestling career like really takes off, like a John Cena, Batista, or The Rock did, where they were kind of riding into the sunset and then went into acting.
Yeah, I could see it happening too. And I mean, I can't really blame anybody if they use it as kind of a stepping stone. You also got to kind of consider at a point too, perhaps, if I can make X amount of dollars torturing my body, but I can make X amount of dollars not torturing my body. What do you think's better? Don't quote me on this, but I believe the Rowdy Roddy Piper movie They Live is actually one of the instances where like he was full time signed to WWE and it like interrupted the WWE career too much. I don't know the exact details, but I remember reading something about this not too long ago where that like kind of put a halt on like active wrestlers doing a lot of crazy roles. But I think they really should just be letting them do it. I mean, I understand at a point you can't have some of these wrestlers off 6 months a year every year, but like Roman already is. Roman might as well just be doing shit on the side. I said it for ages too. I remember saying this like when Cena was picking up nonsense roles back in the day that Cena's going to be the next Rock. And he really is getting there. Cena's got some big fucking roles coming out. And I love to see it. Batista, people say, is like the best wrestler turned actor, but maybe not for long. Who knows?
Yeah, there. I mean, I think Batista's fantastic.
I think they're all
Um,
fantastic. People shit on The
yeah,
Rock, but The Rock is great too. The Rock makes movies that The Rock is typecasted for. The Rock is not getting the romance love story. Like The Rock is the
but low
guy that
key,
puts on a tan button up and kills shit in the jungle.
are we gonna pretend that um what the hell is the movie of him as a quarterback? We can pretend that's not good a movie.
As a quarterback,
Yeah, yeah,
The Rock.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, game plan.
Game plan. We can pretend the
Game
game
plan.
plan ain't a hit.
Game plan's a hit.
Yeah, game
Game plan's
plan.
a
Game
hit.
plan's awesome. Love that movie.
The rundown
Cinnamon. I'm allergic to
hit.
cinnamon.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The rundown. Hit,
The rundown hit. Yeah. Walking tall hit.
hit.
They're all hits. They're all hits. The
What's the
Scorpion
football
King was
movie?
maybe a little. Gridiron Gang
Gridiron Gang.
hit.
Yeah, yeah.
Hit.
I like
Yeah,
all those movies. Oh, look,
dude.
is it fucking Goodfellas? No, but I'm not watching this
Yeah,
expecting it to be.
exactly. I'm not watching it for like this fucking think piece. Like I'm watching
Yeah,
it for
yeah,
what it is,
yeah.
And like, even Jumanji, it's him, Kevin Hart, Jack Black. What do you expect out of this movie? And The Rock, again, it's typecast. So many people are typecasted in Hollywood, though. Like, I don't know why The Rock gets so much scrutiny over it. I understand his whole Black Adam thing was a little bit, all right. I don't know what's going on there, but like, The Rock is fine. He does fine in the roles he's meant to play. Are some of his movies just like crappy movies, like San Andreas? There's an earthquake or whatever. I don't even know where the building's collapsing. Like, all right, I get it, but like, I'm not watching it to watch Goodfellas again. Like, I'm watching it to watch the shitty Rock movie. Like, I
What's
don't know.
what's the Rock movie with Kevin Hart? Shock. I know doesn't narrow it down.
Central Intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that one's it's not that
I
great.
love that movie. That's a
That
great
one's all
movie.
right. I thought it's like funny, but that's like one of the weaker ones to me, to be
Of
honest. Yeah,
course.
yeah.
But that like to tie it all back together, all of these movies are very similar to the Randy Orton John Cena main event at Backlash,
Hmm.
where I had fun because I went in knowing what I was getting, no setting the parameters, having certain expectations, and when they exceeded, I'm not telling you that you need to lower the bar on everything in wrestling or everything you watch. I'm not saying that by any means, but you do have to be a realist at some point. Like you can't go
Yeah,
into I don't go into turning on the game plan to think that, this is going to be a cinematic masterpiece. I'm going
yeah.
in, this is going to be a fun movie, maybe some background noise. I'm going
Uh,
to get a chuckler or two.
Pain and Gain,
Yeah.
incredible movie,
Yeah.
fantastic movie. I've seen the movie 10 times. That's a great movie. And I say, you listen, like The Rock's not getting like romance roles. He's not. Does have the Smash Machine coming out, and that's a little bit of a different role for The Rock. He's got a good look for it though, too. Honestly, I think The Rock is probably a good cast for that. But I don't know. I think The Rock is fine, man. I don't know where all the scrutiny comes from. I kind of find it funny.
To wrap it up here, you mentioned Rowdy Roddy Piper, like him being in that
Mhm.
movie was like the first time it
Love
halted
that movie.
wrestler schedule and it kind of changed
Yeah.
things. It's funny because now The Rock just pops in and halts all of
Yeah,
wrestling
yeah,
schedule,
yeah,
and wrestling revolves around his acting schedule now. So
yeah,
whether
yeah,
he says it doesn't
yeah,
or it does, like
yeah.
we are in the complete opposite of the now of
Yeah.
that
For
now.
all those wrestling fans that are hating on The Rock for making a shitty movie about an earthquake, you must really be hating on him now because he's stopping wrestling to make a shitty movie about an earthquake.
Yeah,
Must make you just a little bit more mad when you think about it that
exactly.
way.
I look, I feel like we've just scratched the surface on like wrestlers reality television show. We've had
Crossing
this
over,
conversation a
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit before, but it's
Talk about it off
something,
air.
yeah, and it's something that's definitely going to come up again, especially for when we blow up and talk to wrestlers, mainly Bishop Dwyer, and tell him to get the hell on Survivor.
Baron Corbin, Bishop Dyer's Nomad, last survivor standing.
Yeah,
Book it.
exactly. Get him on there. If I gotta download Paramount to watch Bishop win it all, I'll do it. Sign
Download it.
me up.
I'll pay that price. No problem
Sign
for
me
my
up.
boy.
Also sign me up for this teeth brushing and my head hitting that pillow. Actually, that pillow in it's 9:15 now. The
Yeah.
sun about to go down. Uh 9:30 max. I'll be
Yeah. By 9:30, you're gonna be looking a lot like Wendy Chu,
yeah.
all cuddled up. Well, that's it for Perry for now. Another C2 podcast in the books, podcast number 912 or something. I have no idea. We'll figure it out when we post it. But a lot more stuff coming. Big stuff coming with SummerSlam. We will be there live. Got to stay subscribed. Turn those notifications on to know what's coming from C2 Wrestling. I think that's all we got for you this time around.
Merci.
Bye.